Okay, 6:30, I'm calling to order the Pickens County Council special cold meeting of Monday, October 20th, 2025. Dale's not able to make it tonight, he's under the weather, so first item up is the invocation, the Pledge of Allegiance, Councilor Scott Lang.
Let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for a beautiful day today. That's why we live in Pickens County. Days like this, Lord, and we thank you for everybody here. And we just ask you watch over us, guide us, conversation, going through the agenda, Lord. And I'd like to give a special thank you to all the service members out there protecting us, give us the right to have this meeting in the first place. So, Lord, just watch over them, protect them, and we thank you. In the name of Jesus, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item up is 2A, the third reading, an ordinance for certain amendments related to the county road system. Mr. Roper, you're.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to go over this. I've asked Rodney and the folks he has here who have consulted with us on this to come on forward. Let Rodney make introductions at the appropriate time. But basically, the ordinance you have in front of you, if you're looking at the bottom of the page, it says page 3 of 120. No, I think that's actually correct. You're looking at this piece of paper in your packet. You'll see that that's the ordinance as we have it in its current form. I believe that there are things in this ordinance that still need to be buttoned up and tightened up, and we can get that done in the next few days and have it ready for a good, clean copy, some work from Ms. Pratt, so that y'all could have third reading actually at the first meeting in November, if that suits you. But for tonight's purposes, I'd like for us to walk through this so that everyone has a clear understanding of what's in this ordinance and the changes that are being made. If you'll look at right where it says now therefore be it resolved, about middle of the page, the first section, it says the sections of 110 or 1010 through 1018 of the UDSO are hereby deleted. There's a typo in the spelling of hereby, but with language substituted in relevant sections of the UDSO that says for the streets, it refers you to the roads portion of the ordinance. So basically, it takes the redundant and sometimes conflicting language. We have some language in the UDSO, some language in the road ordinance. It just takes away the UDSO language. It says, if you have a question about roads, look in the roads ordinance. So we think that'll be better for everybody so that they're not looking in two places. So that's the first thing it does. It removes superfluous language from the UDSO and just makes reference to the roads. The second thing, which if you look further down, it says the provisions of section 32-101 are hereby amended as follows. This adds a subpart C to our ordinance under 32-101 that says basically, says it explicitly. We're getting this from some of our neighbors, some of our other counties in the state, that ultimately the final authority of approving or disproving connectivity of new streets to a county road, whether it's private, municipal, whatever, connect to our road, our standards apply to keep from situations happening where people try to connect substandard roads that may apply or may fit in their jurisdiction. So that's what's happening in number 2. And then you'll see in the bottom of the page, it says 32-151 through 32-155, Division 4 roads are deleted in their entirety, and new language is set forward, which you'll see on the back of that. Now, what's happening there is for many, many years, the county had a way to bring substandard roads in as minimum maintenance roads. So it'd be private roads, roads without any right-of-way, roads without any road shoulder, roads without any condition. And they would come into the county road system as what we call minimum maintenance roads. What this section does is it preserves the ones that are minimum maintenance now. It doesn't take that away from anyone. But it just basically says, we're not doing that anymore. If you want to bring a road into the county road system that's maintained by the county, it has to be to county standards. So that's what that next part says. Then if you come down to section 32-2, about midway of that second page, it basically just codifies the requirement that the county keeps a list of its roads, and that list is the definitive list, so that we don't have this question. Well, can we see where we've maintained it in the past? And, what were the people told 40 years ago about that? I'm going to say, no, there's a list, and that list is the official list. And that list will need to be published to the public and to all of us. And then the fifth and final thing is when I'll turn over. Because the fifth thing you'll see on page 5, on the facing page, where it says placeholder for updates to the existing road ordinance. That is the information that you have followed. So these are the technical road standards that we have updated to current from what they were many, many years ago, to make sure that they're current. And that's where I'll recognize Rodney. He can introduce the engineers and consultants with us. Yes.
When you look at this in your packet, there's actually 2 copies.
That's correct.
Right? It took me a while to figure out. There's one copy that's a clean copy. There's one that has changed. So I thought 120 pages, man, it can't be that long. The old DSO is not that long. So that's basically what you're replacing. So I think it's just the first section is changes, and the second section is just the
And that's correct. We'll clean that second section up even further, while we talk about that, and have it in your packet and have it publicly available to
everyone. And when you look at the start of the ordinance, right at the middle, first page, we talked about this a minute ago. It says provisions of sections 1010 through 1018 are hereby deleted. You're actually deleting all of that. So it should be 10001 to 1021, or just whatever you call chapter 10 section.
We'll have her double check.
You see what I mean on that?
I'm pulling it up now.
Just make a note of that to look at, because
Okay.
if you look at what you're adding here, this is all that's in VSO. 1001, 10021, not 1018.
Have to look at if there's a 19, 20, and 21.
There should be. Okay. Just look the old.
We'll look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you'll need to look.
All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Todd Carroll. He's with Infrastructure Consulting and Engineering, otherwise known as ICE. They're one of our they're one of our on-call engineers, and I've tasked them with going through the ordinance and everything and looking at things that we need to update. Like Ken said, we had the 2 ordinances out there. And so there was some stuff that contradicted each other, each ordinance. And then there's some things that we wanted to tighten up and give some additional language on. And then also try to align more with the DOT. Some stuff doesn't need to be as stringent as the DOT because we don't have that level of road. But there were some things that we wanted to get it close to it. That way when people, kind of ask, why are you requiring that? We wanted to be kind of a standard straight across. And it will help most of the people that are going to be doing the design for these roads and everything to have a constant. But to give it over to Ty, he's going to kind of step through the changes that were made. And if you have questions, feel free to jump out and ask.
So, you guys want to look at that? I guess the highlighted version would be the easiest way to see it. And I believe that the first change is section 5H. And that first change there is really just changing from DHEC to SCDES. DHEC is now called Southtown Department of Environmental Services. That's just an update there. And as we go on to section 6B, to the next one. And Rodney and I had discussed this in previous meetings that the county would like to request that the developer pay for street name signs, stop bars, and striping instead of Pickens County, the way it has been. If there's any questions as we go, y'all let me know. And then moving on to section 10C is the new, I believe it's the new traffic study policy, and that came from the planning department. And that's listed there.
You all remember that from the conversation.
Yeah, I'll have questions about that again.
And then in section 10D, Rodney and I also discussed this, and I recommended that the county eliminate section 10D3, being that if there's a traffic study that requires a road development or some new improvements, that the developer be responsible for all of that and not.
So you can just delete that, you don't.
This, I believe I actually relaxed what the county had, being the minimum grade to 0.5% for curb and gutter sections, and then to 1/3% for ditch sections, and it gives the developer a little more leeway in some flatter sections where they may need to work to make the drainage work properly. But that is the DOT standard, 0.5% and 1/3%.
Is that table?
Yes, sir. It is. It is. And around here, normally, 0.5% or 1% is very easy to acquire. But in case there is a flat neighborhood, that would give them that help they need. And then moving on to section 6, kind of going into the minimum radii for roads. This refers them to DOT, and it's based on design speed, I guess other criteria that they may need there. But for any subdivisions, minimums will be fine. This is more for collector roads if there's improvements in the future. And then we get into the right-of-way portion of it and site distance. And table 10.5 is a new table that has been put in based on DOT standards for site distance, and this is intersection site distance. So as you're leaving the neighborhood, this is the site distance that developers would need to see down county roads or state roads. And the design speeds were adjusted and added on to for lower speeds as well, in case there's situations where the speed limit is 20 or 15 miles an hour.
One thing I want to add right there, we're already following this for our encroachment permits. In the old ordinance, it said language something like it had what it was, but then there was additional language that said if the DOT standards change to follow that, and so that way they don't have to refer back to that if we decide to go in and put what those are in here. Because also the DOT one, it gives just the formula to come up with the distance based on the speed, and so I went ahead and did the chart so that people don't have to do that. They can go ahead and look at this and what the speed is. So we just added it there.
Passenger car, Jimmy, I don't know car engineering, but the site distance of a Mazda Miata is really different. 50. Is there just a general bridge down here?
For most of the developments, the passenger car site distance would be the one that would be required. But let's say there's a commercial development and you have tractor trailers pulling out, then you would need that longer distance for the truck driver to be able to see farther to make sure they can make that turn. And that's why I guess DOT has the passenger car, the single unit truck, which would be like UPS, and then the tractor trailers.
I just wonder why there's that much of a difference, because I would think you've got Amazon drivers going in and out of everything. You've got people with giant trucks, you've got people who've got RVs parked. Shouldn't everything be done? Well, I guess the passenger car is less.
Because the passenger cars are quicker and can accelerate quicker, but even those values are conservative.
Okay.
And maybe Eric.
Passenger car, they've got to measure their site distance. We didn't have to park. Sit in a small car, dry height, so we didn't have to park. They got to measure it from that.
Okay.
Truck should be able to get it when they're sitting higher.
Because they're higher.
As far as the vertical curve. I mean, it's always got, whether you're a truck or horizontal, you got a tree line or a hill or something blocking on the bank. We got to get that out. That's block everybody.
Okay.
So,
Okay. All that's taken into. Thanks, I hopefully understand.
Is this also for driveways? Or is it just intersection?
That's driveway.
Driveway.
Yeah.
Considered an intersection as well.
Yes, sir.
That's right. And then the figure 10.5 actually shows the site distance and where it's measured and how it's measured. And then section 8 kind of talks about dead end streets. Sorry.
Is landscaping taken into account? If you have trees blocking things?
It is, so, kind of,
Like, okay, sorry.
yeah, kind of DOT standard is between 2 feet and 7 feet, there should be no vegetation.
Right.
So you can see clearly. And section 8 is the dead end streets, and I believe before it was referred to as cul-de-sac streets, but of course there's different options for how streets get in. So that's really just the title there, a dead end street that changed throughout. And then number 11, we kind of get into some slope issues and saying that if there are split level streets, that you cannot have a steeper than 4-to-1 slope between the split levels. And in section 12, we get into the islands, and the islands be maintained by the HOA. And there's the vegetation issue between 2 feet and 7 feet to maintain site distance. And I believe I added the last one there, that if there's an issue with some of the landscaping and it needed to be cleared and the HOA is non-responsive, then the county has the right to go in and clear that at that extent.
What is the distance back from the road that you deem that necessary to remove it? What is that distance? Right.
This would be in the vegetated islands within the right of way. I believe that's all it's talking about. But
And then it's mainly referring to like site distance. And back where we originally talked about the site distance, in that diagram, it shows a site triangle, and basically anything in that site triangle needs to be cleared to get that site distance.
And section 10F was street improvements, stating that the proof rolling would be witnessed by the county inspector, certified design engineer, just to make sure that it's proof rolled and witnessed. And then table 10.6 is the asphalt composition. And I guess these amounts didn't change, but I put in a number that is more common to the industry based on pounds per square yard instead of inches. So it's just a little more specific there. I guess the big section that did change there, and as we get into the typical section, is the width of pavement. That the width of pavement did increase to 24 feet as the minimum. Now alleyways can still be smaller at 16 feet, but all the roads did increase to 24 feet minimum.
Was that from now moving forward?
Yeah.
So we're gonna grandfather the ones that are less than that now be acceptable, or do we have to go back?
No, you wouldn't go back and upgrade anything. It'd be anything new from the point that this is put in place going forward.
What if we do a paving project, repaving?
So we wouldn't do that because that would be very costly. Because then we have to because some of my roads don't have right of way.
Right.
And so we will have to go in and get right of way. There's some situations where they may be curving. There may be situations where we have to move the ditch line back.
Yeah.
And so that's why we say only what's going forward, because then you're starting out from scratch.
But we are willing to repair, fix, and maintain ones that are.
Right. Yes.
And so then on the next page, you see the new typical sections, and the old typical section had a 20-foot clear width, and then the gutter was right next to that. So the biggest concern was the subdivision. If you have that width and you have a parked car on the road, it becomes difficult to get around parked cars as they're staggered. So with 24 feet, it's a little more room, and you've got the curb and gutter to provide even additional room. Another stated. And then we get into kind of describing the slopes and the shoulders, bringing that up to DOT standard. Kind of 4-to-1 being the minimum, and then where guardrails are necessary. And that was a change. Instead of there being a 2-to-1 acceptable slope, that anything steeper than 4-to-1 would need guardrail within the clear zone.
Now, I want to make sure I understand that. So instead of 2-to-1, even if it's 4-to-1,
Yes.
still need to go.
Yes. Well, 4-to-1 is acceptable, but anything steeper than 4-to-1, so going from 4-to-1 towards 2-to-1 is too steep that a car, if it gets on that slope, can turn over, and that's why we do that.
And also it's the additional if it's steeper than 4-to-1 and higher than 6 feet. If it's both of those two.
Right. But it's, guardrail is a definite alternative, if there's situations where it's needed to keep the cars safe. And then we get into the substandard street section. And street abandonment after that.
When are you gonna have the wording on that?
So I'm actually working with Ken and Destiny on that. She's already provided some language that I'm reviewing, but we just want to make sure we cover everything because there's a couple of different types of abandonments. For instance, you have county roads where some individuals will want the county road to be abandoned and become private. But then there's also a situation of surplus property where there's a right of way, but a road was never built in that right of way. And so individuals with property that abuts up to that will want that abandoned. And so we just want to put the procedures for those two different ones in there and so we'll make sure we cover everything. So that's why there's that placeholder.
And you'll have it November 3rd.
Yes, that's the intention.
That's about on 10G where you're just saying, it says, following project access improvement shall be required if deemed necessary by the county engineer. Does that mean, and every single time the county engineer is gonna get involved, these 5, that's 1, 2, 4, 5. Should these 5 you have to do? They're always up for discussion?
Yeah, it's kind of the substandard street section. If an exception would be made, I mean, we can certainly change that.
So what that talks about, what that goes into is basically we have some situations where, for instance, a subdivision, you got phase 1 and that road was put in place 30 years ago, but then finally a developer comes and they want to do phase 2 and they want to tie into that road. And so what this does is it gives me the ability to say, no, you can't tie on to this substandard road without upgrading. Because there's a couple that we have where it's like a new 100 or 150 lot subdivision, and they want to use a substandard road to access it. So that's just going to make the road even worse. And so that gives me the ability to say that road has to be upgraded for you to tie into.
That sounds awesome. What I'm wondering is why we need to say if deemed necessary. Are there situations where we're going to make exceptions? Is that why that was added?
I think the only exception would be if it's a newer subdivision where it's not necessarily a subdivision. If it's somebody with a lot that they're gonna subdivide into like 5 or 6 lots, that's not gonna really add a whole lot of traffic. I think what it is for those where it's a large subdivision and it gives us the ability to make that decision.
A significant traffic increase.
That's right.
So does if deemed necessary by the engineer have enough teeth that says you got to talk to an engineer first?
We can
Or should it be you have to do these? Some exceptions can be made.
Okay. Yeah.
Contact. Understand, but this
I got
seems
you.
like here's 5 things you might want to do only if we tell you to do them. That's how it reads to me right now. It should be you should do these 5 things. We will consider it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take a look at that and make some changes.
How do you feel, how does Rusty feel about that?
Yeah, I do agree. Because you're telling, in that sentence, you're telling the proposed commercial developer that it's required if deemed necessary.
Yes, one person.
You know, it's either required or it's not, right? We're gonna, we should definitely require a commercial developer to meet the standard, right? If you have a private developer going on, if somebody has the property and he wants to develop it himself, it's gonna be a little bit different.
That's right.
But if you got a commercial guy, business coming in here to develop property,
Yeah,
there
that
should
would
be no-
definitely need to
there
be.
should be no question
Okay.
on that.
Yes, maybe the language is.
So I would even make it a separate sentence,
Okay.
right? Just to get it away from the commercial development altogether.
Somebody discuss the street abandonment.
Nah, this, yeah, we'll get the wording on that.
And then section 11 talks about the shared drive, common drives, and it's the new section of shared drive and common drive hybrid, which came from the planning department as well.
I'll ask you about that later.
Section 12 is talking about street name signs and traffic signs, basically saying that they'll be installed by the developer and not the county. If non-standard street signs are installed by the developer HOA, the developer HOA shall maintain these street signs.
That's an argument that actually gets made every once in a while, so that'll be good. Patient's sake. Your road. Ridiculous sign. That's that desk.
Is there a standard for signs so that it has to meet certain criteria?
Yes, sir.
It has different styles, but it's got to be reflective and all that.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So
I figured there was.
TCD.
Yeah,
MTCD.
Right.
And same thing with the striping requirements, the developer would pay that cost and install. It kind of goes into when the double yellow lines are needed. Also, the installation of street lighting fixtures within county right of way must be approved by the county engineer and maintained by the HOA. And Section 14 talks about an encroachment permit and refers them to the link for that.
What happens if somebody doesn't have an HOA, or are we requiring that?
If there's signs that are substandard installed in a certain situation, then they would have to be maintained as the HOA wishes. Otherwise, it would be a county road and should have standard signs.
I'm thinking like streetlights, and the neighborhood I lived in had maybe 25 houses, streetlights. No HOA.
Well, in that case, it would be grandfathered in. I guess this is kind of going forward, but.
Right, but something like that might be built, like not every, it seems strange to me to say if you have a light, it has to connect to the HOA.
So basically, to be honest with you, we don't have any that have streetlights, and we don't know that we even have the ability to repair streetlights if something like that happens. And so I just don't feel like we should start all of a sudden accepting streetlights. But for right now, we don't have any roads, county roads that have streetlights that we maintain. That's not within the right of way anyway.
Right, let's not get into that business.
Is Sedgwood not county road? They all private.
Sedgwood is public, but that was paid for through special tax. So if they need repairs, they'll be up to them.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. Apologize. Thank you.
And then number 14, we get into driveway spacing and kind of minimum distance between, and that's the DOT standards there. And
And that uses the same table on the floor, line of sight.
they're related, yes, sir. And again, going to section 16, discussing sidewalks, if there are sidewalks that would be maintained by the HOA. And within that, I added a drawing kind of showing crosswalks and sidewalks and what that kind of should look like in subdivision going forward. Of course, kind of referring to all the ADA standards and striping.
But we don't require sidewalks.
There are.
So I believe in the UDSO for certain subdivisions that require sidewalks, but it's always been my position in the Roads and Bridges Director position that if they do sidewalks, that the HOA maintain it, because that can get pretty costly for us to maintain it. When you're dealing with concrete and everything, instead of just having to go out there and do like a asphalt cut, then you're dealing with sidewalk, and that can get very costly.
I hope we are encouraging people.
And on the next page is kind of what Rodney was talking about, that if the pavement is cut, then the repairs would be paid by the utility.
This is actually something that's come up a lot lately, especially with our newly paved roads. Through the last 4 or 5 years, I've come to realize that if you've been waiting for a utility to put their line in, they start paving the road and they'll come and put the line in. So we've had a lot of situations where they've come in and almost destroyed our new asphalt. We had a couple of situations where they bored, and so you would think, okay, they're not going to bother the asphalt, but then the boring head got away from them and went up through the asphalt. And so we're just trying to make sure that it's understood that any kind of things like that, it needs to be the responsibility of them to take care of it or at least pay for it.
So this puts a little stricter standards on the utilities where they should be and how deep they should be. In section 18, any revisions to the stormwater management shall be approved by the county engineer. And again, in section 3, kind of putting storm volume criteria on that a 10-year, 24-hour storm event is required, and a minimum 15-inch diameter culvert.
That adequate.
Yes, sir, that's stated.
I thought we had a whole thing with our stormwater guys and UDSO when we went around with this, and we were going to be more than standard.
Yeah, that was on riparian setbacks. That was not on this situation.
I really recall going bigger than 10 year. I thought
And that's probably for crossline pipes, and these are parallel culverts for driveways and that sort of thing. So usually it's 10-year parallel and then 25 crossing the road. And that's where we kind of get into in section 4, talking about the bridges. The bridges shall provide 2 feet of freeboard and the 25-year. Okay.
For those driveway pipes, you're gonna start looking at like 30-inch pipes in some situations for a driveway pipe.
It's going to be deeper than the adjacent.
Exactly, it's gonna make the ditch a lot deeper and everything to tie in, and so that's why it's only just a 10-year storm. That's right, but like you said, any pipes that's crossing the road, those have to be 25-year storm.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Looks like we're at the end, huh?
Yes, sir.
Anybody have any questions on this? I actually got a few questions. Looking at page 19, why are there no traffic studies required in subdivisions between 0 and 500 trips? So usually each house has about 10 trips per day. So that would be subdivisions up to 50 houses, there would be no study required.
That was beyond the schedule, but
That would be analysis.
that's right. That's the
So
existing.
Alice, this is what we voted for. Between 0 and 500 houses, which is about 10 trips per house, so it's about 0 to 50 homes. There's no traffic study that's required.
Not required, but we did put in the language that commission or county staff and ask for a traffic for any project. We look at the surrounding area and their impacts. We do have the ability to require it. I think that's the fun thing. County reserves the right to require these things.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that.
There.
Okay, yeah, I remember talking about that. Okay, so we feel we have that covered there? Okay, let's see, on page 40, I just have a question. On private roads, it talks about using Article 4 standards. Where is Article 4?
That's in the
Yeah, so,
article.
hold on.
No, you're talking about article 4.
I'm sorry, what section are you?
I'm looking at page 40,
11D.
and then it says, 11D, it says, maximum number of lots which may be served by a private road shall be governed by Article 4 of this ordinance. Where's that at?
Same as before.
That's referencing the difference between fully built out county roads versus minimum man.
And Article 4 is a fully built out.
That reference is Article 4 of the UDSO,
Which
So
say
that-
what?
Say again?
it references Article 4 of the UDSO. Block sizes.
Okay, so it's not talking about minimum maintenance.
Oh, I got you. So here,
So we just need to add them.
Of the
Yeah, instead of.
yeah, lot and building standards. That's what it's called, lot and building standards. Okay, because I was wondering,
Number 1 and
same when I just added words on, because I was looking for us, trying to find.
Article 12 is mentioned.
Okay, here's the last question I have. It's kind of a tough one. In the current ordinance that we have now, with the current DSO, shared driveways up to 3 homes, there's no minimum construction standard. So if you have, let's say it's typically for family, you want to put a shared driveway in there, put 3 lots on it, you can make a dirt road. Now, what happens is that then you jump to a common driveway, which is up to 10 lots. And those are gravel. Now, what happens in my district, and I've seen it all over the place, is that developers will come in, somebody building 10 homes, in my opinion. What they'll do is they'll build this gravel road, and they'll follow your standards. Say, yeah, we're all gonna agree to maintain this gravel road. 10 years later, I'm knocking doors on that road. 20 years later, it's complete mud.
So when's the county gonna fix my road?
Yeah, and the county, and they're saying, because all the original owners are gone, there was an HOA and it's gone. And they're coming to us and saying, Castle Creek, for example, that thing goes all the way up to the top. You got an EMS vehicle up there, you're quite a driver. Because I did it with my 4-wheel drive, and I can do it, but it's rough. Now, they're coming to us and saying, Alex, can you upgrade our road? And the answer is no, and I understand why, because when these lots were sold initially, they were a lot cheaper because they didn't bring the road up to standard. And it would be unfair to, let's say, you who live on a standard road and you paid your lot this much more for it, but then go pay for his road to get it up to standard, so nothing happens. So I think when you have common driveways up to 10 homes, you just create more and more of these. And I just think we need to get away from that. Like I said, I'm all for the 3 houses, dirt road, you got on your piece of private. Once you start moving above that, it's beyond family. It's some kind of developer, and I know you tried to do like a 5-lot hybrid.
So I did reach out to staff just to clarify, so the hybrid was intended to replace
Your common, because you got all
common
3 of them in
and
there.
the shared and make one option, not.
So we're gonna
So
delete.
that was our mistake.
Yeah, because I was sitting there saying now you have 3 options at the
Right,
top.
so it would make those 2 and
Oh.
just create a hybrid model, so.
That makes more sense. Now, whether we have to make a decision.
Whether it should be 5.
Right.
Well, yeah, because
Certainly
basically what it
up to
is you read the document, you have up to 3, a dirt road, you can do whatever you want. Then you've got up to 5, you have to have a gravel road. Then up to 10, you have to have a gravel road again. So it just didn't seem like it was making any sense to me. That's why I wrote you an email this week. So what you're saying is you want to eliminate, so your draft is really to eliminate these 2 here and just have this. And then you think that puts some brakes on what's going on. Okay, what do the rest of you think about that? I would imagine some people don't have this problem. Beasley probably doesn't, Clemson doesn't either. And what do you, what
I
do
think
you,
what you're trying to do here makes sense.
should it be 3 or should it be 5? Or Scott, what do you want to weigh in on? You hear that problem at all?
No.
We used to hear about it, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Over.
It was, I remember when we were talking about the UDSO, EMS was talking about driveways. When they're dirt, and they've got trees growing over them, and they get bucked out by rain. So my concern here is, I don't have knowledge of this, but you've got a dirt driveway serving 5 homes, is that fully accessible by our? I remember there was some conversation of, well, they're all taking that risk and all those homeowners understand it. That was like, okay.
I'll tell you, that one on 288 up towards Holly Springs is full, cross something. It is unbelievable. I can barely get up there.
Is that near the entrance to the park?
It's near Holly Springs. If you go down 288, it's on the right side. Cross something. It is brutal. I knock it every time I knock. I'm telling you, they're amazed I get up there. I'm voting for you. You made it. It's that hard.
We were getting back from the,
That's a road. That's one of these roads.
fire, and we couldn't go down Highway 11. Google sent me on this. It had a name, but it was grass. It was just driving right through people's backyards. And there were probably,
Those situations exist.
there were probably 8 or 10 homes back there. How is this?
That's the situation he's talking about where we platted as a road, but the developer never builds it.
Yeah.
And that comes up with a great deal. Yes.
I did not feel like Google should have sent me there
Yeah,
either.
that's
Google will get you killed.
Yeah, I know, right? Right?
You've got in here that the maintenance of the driveway be done by the property owner, then we're gonna have something on file,
Yeah.
register and deeds that they're responsible for keeping it. Is that what this says?
That's not covered. Now, all the neighbors have to agree on something and come file a document. Who's going to hand out these documents? Or is this all, again, this is only for new ones?
And the purpose is for emergency vehicles, to be able to get to you.
Well, then it's also, I think, purposes that, I mean, I had a guy on one of these roads, he bought the property, he's like, whatever it is, I keep it out of here. Like, you know, what kind of stuff? So I would kind of want to minimize that situation where developer develops it, he builds it, it's on him to make the road. If it's up to me, anything over 3 houses would be a standard county road. But I've seen enough. You know, you may not agree with that, but that would be my position. This looks like it's probably kind of a hybrid of Alex's more extreme position, because he's seen this so many times versus everything else. But I mean, I'll vote for this the way it is, but I'd like to see something stronger myself.
We're talking about the difference between 3 houses and 5 houses.
Yeah, I think it's the difference between a family and a developer. I think 3 has always been that line.
Is there a way to for that verbiage, family versus developer?
I mean, 5 is safe. If you do 5, there's very few people that are going to put 5 family houses on. They'll just cut in another row. The 2 and 3. That's how they'll get around. So there's ways around it. Just like I said, I've seen it. I'm just repeating myself. Developers use this 10 lot minimum for common road. They just enter. What do you recommend? What's the administration recommending?
Fairly researched.
What do you, Mr. Rowe, what do you think?
The experts are saying 5, I'm going with the experts.
Thank you. Okay, Clemson easily, doesn't matter.
All right, I'll default this out.
You probably have all one road like this. Okay, that's fine. So you're gonna correct the idea that you had these other 2 comments shared in there, and that will be done. Okay, any other questions about that?
Section 32-2, county road system. And all roads described in the inventory referenced above shall be comprised the county road system. Additions to the question, that's the wrong place, I apologize. Taking them back to the definition. County shall maintain a written inventory of all public highways, roads, and streets not currently maintained by the Southern Department of Transportation and not located within any municipal boundary. Such inventory shall not include any private roads.
What is,
Section 32,
back in the early part of the order.
dash 2, road system, A, definition. This remove any roads currently considered county roads.
So if we do this the way that former attorney recommended it be done, it allows for that situation where basically you were advertised the list of roads for a certain amount of days. And then during that time, the public can either come and say, hey, no, my road was supposed to be in this. Okay, where's the deed for it? Or someone can come and say, my road is on this list and it shouldn't be. My road should be private. And if we don't have a deed for that road or anything, then, you know.
All right, so I want to clarify my question a little.
Okay.
It is a public road, it's a known public road, right? It's a known county public road currently exists today. But by that definition, it would no longer be a county road, so what happens to
Because
that
it's
road?
inside the city.
There is, I can say this, and I know the situation you're referencing, I know exactly why you're asking the question, it's fair. There is no road being maintained by Pickens County that by this inside of this.
That's a tricky answer. I want to bet it's been decades since the road's been made.
Might be. But it's been 7 years since it was maintained by the county at least. But you're exactly on the point. Does the county want to undertake maintenance or establish maintenance inside municipal bounds? I've always taken the position, this is what y'all take, but I've always taken the position that state law says inside municipal boundaries, it's not private or DOT, it's the obligation of the city. Know that different people have different opinions on that, particularly some of the cities. Very well. So, but that does mean that. That's literally what it means.
So there will no longer be county roads.
I would argue and have maintained throughout that there has never been county road because of the operation of state law.
So can I get a legal opinion on that with some form of backing to that? Because that goes against previous arguments, so I would like a legal opinion on that.
I'll certainly look into that and get back to you on it for sure.
I mean, I love it, it's a great answer. It's a legal, legit answer.
Sure. I'll look at it and we'll sign it, yeah.
I'll just get you started on it. 5-27-120. The city or town council of any city or town of over 1,000 inhabitants shall keep in good repair all streets, ways, and bridges within the limits of the city or town. State law.
Like there's an AG opinion on that.
That is what I'm relying on. Please go on beyond that.
We missed it.
5-27-120. This, and I'm reading it word for word. The city or town council of any city or town over 1,000 inhabitants shall keep in good repair all the streets, ways, and bridges within the limits of the city or town.
The state roads are the responsibility of the city, according to the law. According to that, what he just said,
Just a plain language of that. I think the state roads are defined.
with the plain language that he just read, you could make that.
Could make the argument. I would not opine on this.
Leave it up to the city, they say, would be.
Okay. Any other questions about this?
On the storm drainage.
Yeah, I got one question.
Yes, sir. On the storm drainage, and we talked about this before on Quarry Road, that property that you were gonna have, you and Rodney, and go look at that.
That's on, Lakewood Heights.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Down Lakewood Heights.
Right, where I guess we did some upgrade, but further down there was drainage that was not.
Yeah.
Right, so now we have flooding.
So that's actually not the case. So we did replace a pipe on Hillendale Road that is within the subdivision, and it is higher up in the watershed, but it is within the subdivision, and all the water within that watershed was already going to that pond. And so we didn't add any additional storm water to that pond by changing that pipe that we did. All that water was already going to the pond.
Okay. So what is our remedy to try to help?
We met down there with DES, with DEC, the dam people, some weeks back. Since, you passed the complaint.
Right.
So that meeting was between our stormwater, Mayor of Liberty, the deputy city administrator, Nick Adams, which is an engineering firm that represents the city of Liberty, as well as Chuck Owens from DES. They met down there, and basically there's a disagreement about that, but the issue is DES supports our position. We're not adding anything to it. That dam was developed by a subdivision next subdivision I grew up in. It was in the city limits way back then. So, we don't think we're adding any water to it that wasn't already in the subdivision, and just because we upsized the pipe, we didn't upsize the pipe because there was water ponding by it. We did it just to try to handle storm floods. But we don't think we're adding any water to what that dam's already been getting. The other folks I think involved, there's some reports, I can pass this back to you. They don't believe that the dam's overwashing based on the evidence. I know the community out there, and I know the citizens that live along, is that Hillendale or is that Lakeside?
I think it's Lakeside. Yeah.
They've been there a good 35 years. I know those folks. That's been an issue for 35 years.
So so you're saying that that's a city issue?
It is.
The pond and the road is in the city limits.
So they're gonna have to petition the city to get.
No, so the pipe, we didn't replace the pipe on the dam. We replaced the pipe on Hillendale Road at the back of the subdivision that is actually in the county. That portion is in the county. And from what we saw, we think there's a situation where the properties around that pond, they actually have structures built lower than the pond down. And so if the water is going to get up, obviously it's going to get into those structures. But that makes sense being that it's below the pond down. We think that that's the situation that's occurring that some people aren't happy with.
All right.
One final question.
Yeah, do that, and then I need to know who they within the city to get that one.
One final question. I want everybody to weigh in on this, or at least have thought. Page 20, section 7, it says the county reserves the right to require traffic studies based on, we talked about that. Should that be the planning commission or the county or both? Dr. Linville, what do you think about that?
This is in 7.
Yeah, the one that you pointed out. It's page 20, section 7. County reserves the right to require traffic studies. Remember I said it's less than 50 houses.
Sure.
Should the planning commission have that authority, the county, or both?
Planning commission not included in the phrase the county. The county. I think we leave it vague. It means engineer or the county or.
It covers us for any project that's required to go to the commission, but it's staff still.
So if the planning, let's say the county administration says, we don't want to study for them, we're not requiring it, the planning commission says yes. It goes? Okay, all right, that's good. Any other questions on that? We're done with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're gonna give us a final on November 3rd, and we're gonna vote on. Next up is gonna be 2B, the third reading of an ordinance or amendments related to, thank you very much.
Thank you.
But it's on, I'm trying to move on. Third reading of the ordinance for amendments related to the unsafe property conditions. Unsafe property conditions. Mr. Roper, you have anything there?
Yeah, I'll recognize Ms. Fowler for more specific information on that. I think that's a relatively minor change in the main street.
That's a question. The agenda says that was just third reading of that ordinance.
You know what,
But-
when we talked originally, I was thinking that it was gonna be so short. But it turned out to be a lot.
There's a part that wasn't written.
Yeah, there was a part that wasn't written and all that kind of stuff.
We did not just do third reading.
No, we never voted.
We did a workshop.
Yeah.
The third reading will be in the next.
I was thinking that maybe there's possibility.
Did we need to do public hearing since we
No, we did a public
The
hearing.
hearing.
We did.
did it second? Okay. Thank you.
So, after a couple of meetings, we are down to 2 definition changes for property conditions, which I'll have in your packets. One, very simple, removing the word trash from the definition of junk, and then adding a definition and a standard word trash and yard. So this just helps both the public understand the difference between the two, gives a clear length of time before a violation could be issued, and it allows consistency and objectivity in our enforcement efforts. Now, because we were just changing 2 definitions or changing one and adding another, we did not go forward with a separate section for these because there just wasn't enough there. So instead, we changed them in place where they currently were.
Okay, so I'm gonna make 2 separate motions. I think we could have different votes on it. I'm gonna make a motion for third reading to adopt a separate definition of trash and yards as presented in the council packet. Here a second on
Second.
that. Any discussion on this? This is the household separate definition of trash. Okay, those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign. Passes 4-1. Next item up is, I'm gonna make a third reading motion to remove the word trash from the junk definition as presented in the packet. Do I hear a second?
1073.
1073, that's it. Do I hear any discussion on that? This is removing the word trash because it's now redundant, because trash has its own definition. If those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign. That passes 4-1. Okay, that item is done. Too big. Thank you very much. Next is item 3A. I'm assuming that's Mr. Roper, funding request for replacement and repair portion of the detention center camera system.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the camera system at the detention center has now got some age on it. There have been lightning strikes through the last years. They've had cameras that are slowly going offline, which is not to be unexpected. I'll say since the sheriff came on board, the new administration, the sheriff, they've been looking at that. Captain Durham passed on a couple of months back that was a problem he was having. So we went about and got estimates to fix that. We got a quote from one of our existing vendors for that. You can see it's 18 cameras, although late breaking news, I believe there's actually 19 cameras that are out according to Captain Durham. So if you all would entertain adding a little to this, you see the amount there, the estimate is $30,363 to allow us to get all those cameras up and running for the safety of the inmates and our valuable staff. We would appreciate that. So if you could, this would be money coming from the general fund. It's not a budgeted item. It will be reflected in the budget amendment, but we wanted to make sure that y'all understood what we're doing, give you an opportunity to allocate that money from the sheriff and the
So
staff.
I'm gonna make a motion of $30,363.10 plus.
One more.
That's the one more. Do I hear a second on that? Any discussion?
What's the timeline?
I'm not exactly sure. I was thinking about that as I was starting to talk. It should go pretty quickly. We use this vendor all the time, and they're pretty responsive.
The sheriff is, this, for what you need, does this get you where you need to be, back up and running?
It'll definitely get our detention center where officers will be safer, our inmates will less likely to occur either file litigation against us for not having that. I don't think it's the perfect solution long term. What we need to do is revisit the entire system to make sure that we are purchasing the agreement through those companies to come in and service those. That's why we are where we're at. MTS came in, they did the original install, and at some point in time, prior to us taking over, there was no service agreement. Does it make sense? IT has issues with working on those systems, because they are very foreign. The time that we put in requests for them to work on, they don't know how to fix these. Very limited in what they can actually work with. The health representatives for yes, while I was at sheriff conference, they offered to come back and train our IT guys so that they could fix those, but of course, like, it could cost, would probably be more than answer your question. Shorter, yes, this will get us in much.
We look back at the budget.
Mr. Lang?
Well, I was gonna say, can we service agreement to this?
Not with this company. If my bond is, so they can service it, what they offer is the manufacturer warranty, and warranty their installation. It is not warranty the product.
Okay.
Manufacturer warranty, what they do offer is if it does fail during the manufacturer warranty, they will come and they will fix it. They will try to leverage manufacturer warranty for their labor costs, but that is not.
How many total cameras are running at a time in the,
But I think it's 191 cameras total inside.
so if there's 191 cameras, we have 19 out? Okay, that makes it feel better about 19 out of 20. Okay. Is this gonna replace just the 19?
I understand.
So even though we've had, this document opens up with being like, we've had all sorts of issues and problems and everything, isn't this just setting us up for the 180 remaining ones to?
There's always that.
All right, should we, I mean, I guess if we're putting in a purchase order, should we buy like 5 extras in case, if these are dropping like flies, or?
Issue maybe each one of those.
Oh,
You're not sure which one.
okay.
So we have 360-degree cameras. We have some that are big, like 180. I mean, it would be hard to say what you would need extra for.
Okay, it's not like the radios or just.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that.
I think the approach we should probably look at is they go through their budget process. We bring the budget back to you all, that we look at their repairs to equipment budget, try to build something in standard year by year. We're prepared for it. It's not something they asked for. Jail was finished, that was all installed several years ago, so their cost.
What is the lifespan of one of the cameras?
It's gonna depend. We have that problem here.
I think what we run into at the jail is it's very lightning prone. We've had some of those cameras that's been out since the front rally 23, year 23. Recorders have been placed, and there's a lot of wires and fiber optic cable and stuff that they have to check. So I think it's a lot of it's got to do with the lightning strike. Continuously have it.
Is there any way to protect?
Say if we looked into.
So I walked around that property. It's got lightning rods along that fence every so many feet. I think it's just prone to lightning. I'm not a lightning expert. I don't know if there would be any
You're
kind of
sitting on
study.
granite.
I've actually talked with Tim Owen and asked him if he knew anybody that could come and do a study or check and see if everything's grounded the way it should be. He's supposed to be checking into this.
I would definitely take a look at that. Your lightning suppression system may not be where it needs to be. If you're still losing equipment, I would say it's just not.
Conversation I have with him, he's supposed to be checking in.
Okay. All right.
That's not ability to access through doors, switches, through doors that you have to open manually.
Okay. You've got a serious issue with your lightning suppression.
Yeah,
So, yeah, work on that, please.
Any other comments or questions on that? Okay, those in favor of that project, raise your hand. Those same sign passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see, next item is gonna be item number 3B, comprehensive litter strategy. Just for those not here, Scott, we started this a few years ago. The sheriff office way back when had 2 litter control officers. They were reassigned within the sheriff's department. And about 3 years ago, the council and the county administration, we created our own litter control department. And what we did is we hired 2 litter control officers. They went through training. They're now class 3 officers. They have a gun and a badge and can hand out tickets that can arrest people for litter dumping and violations. Next step was for us, and we did it at the start of the year, was to create a county litter ordinance, in addition to the state ordinance, to give us a little more flexibility. And we did that early in the year. Now we have Council Wallace, who's made a request to, as one of his goals, try to come up with some kind of program to regularly pick up litter on our roads. Mr. Roper and Mr. Wallace are going to talk a little bit about that.
So thank you. I know Mr. Wallace has talked with Ms. Fowler a little bit about this, a little bit with me. Just as a beginning of this conversation, I'm not bringing any specific proposals tonight, unless Mr. Wallace has something he at this early stage. We want you to know what we are doing now, so there's kind of that base level. We look at what we might do to enhance it. So for that, I'll recognize Ms. Fowler to update you on.
Absolutely. Oh, there we go. So we, back in 2022, or 21 and 22, originally launched our concept of Pickens Crowd, which that's when, post-COVID, there were more people out and about, obviously, more people out on the roads and the parks that needs more trash. We saw a significant increase in trash on the road, debris, litter, you name it, out there in those years. And so this first started as an effort to combat that post-COVID. So we did a couple of programs, after Mr. Wallace, and a couple of you, well, one of you was here when we did the Pick Up Pickens program, which we offered to pay organizations using ARPA funding to help us clean up the roads. And that was mildly successful. We cleaned up about 40 miles of roads, but just not sustainable. So I just wanted to run through a couple of things that this is data from Palmetto Pride. They do a fantastic job of not only organizing us across the state in our efforts, making sure we're aware of state law changes, making sure we know what our neighbors are doing, and they're excellent with keeping data. So this is just some data from 2025 year to date of environmental enforcement. Like the chairman said, this department was officially launched in 2021. We did some adjustments to that in 2023, and then have the 2 litter control officers that are dedicated to that. So this is, they track their data every day. Every week I get a report, so I know what we're working on, and then at the end of every year we compile that. So to date, 24 tires removed. We actually just had a tire dumping Thursday or Friday that is 150 tires on private property, so that number is going to significantly go up. 290 signs removed. The most of those are those little, we call them election type signs that people put out. We have an ordinance against those. Most people don't know that. So we have a policy when we see those, we pick them up, we call the number on the sign, we give them 7 days to come get their signs. We're not going to trash something that they paid for. But if they don't come, then we trash them. We sometimes have some repeat offenders on those, but typically we get the point across pretty easily just with a simple phone call. So those have definitely slowed down. 40 illegal dumpings, and then over $1,100 in fines. One thing I want to point out about the fines, we do work with the magistrate's office to do community service if that is an option. Of course, it is up to the magistrate to decide if they enforce the fine or if they add community service to that. And so we love to see the offenders out cleaning up the offense. And so if we can get the road cleaned up versus money that doesn't come back to us for any significant purpose, then we would much rather see it cleaned up. So that number is relatively low, but the reason is because we push for community service over fines.
Is the community service always litter pickup?
Related to environmental, yes. Yeah. That is just really a lot of words to tell you that we care about keeping things. So, won't make you read that. But this is just an overview of all of the things that we are currently doing, have been doing for the last couple of years. Just want to run through that. I think you've got a pretty good overview of what environmental does. We do have the code enforcement and litter reporting tool on our website. We actually had a discussion a week or so ago about how this is kind of hard to find. And so we're working with communications and engagement on maybe having a dedicated URL that we can post out there, getting this QR code more visible to make that easier. It is used by citizens, but not nearly as much as we think it could be. We get a lot of our complaints through phone calls.
Fixing county roads, that URL gets up significant
Yes.
traffic.
Yeah, so we're hoping to do something similar to that, but it is monitored by our environmental enforcement manager. Adopt a highway and Pickens crowd. So yes.
Go ahead. That's exactly what that was going to be my question.
Okay. Awesome. So we have obviously an Adopt a Highway program in Pickens County. A couple of years ago, DOT reached out to us about managing that program for them. At the time, they were limited in staff, and there were a couple other county programs across the state that had had success with that. So we did manage that program for them for about 18 months to a year. I would say there was a lot of paper files. But back in like mid 2024, they started taking that back over. So they handle the administrative side, we handle the supplies side. So we still get the supplies to the groups and pick up the bags when they're done. So it is a good partnership. At that same time, we also started the Pickens Crowd Partner Program, which was intended to replicate Adopt a Highway for county roads. We didn't have anything to facilitate groups cleaning up county roads. To date, we've only had 4 groups sign up for that, so we'd like to do a much bigger push. In addition to a marketing campaign here in early 2026 to get that back out there, because it just didn't gain a lot of momentum when we first launched it. So there's definitely work that we can do on that end. The PTI program is another program that we do with the magistrate. So Ken could probably explain this a lot better than I can, but instead of basically going to jail, you can do the PTI.
And how often does that happen?
That's not as frequently taken advantage of as you would probably like. I met with PTI back 3 or 4 years ago. PTI should have stated that one. It's not through the magistrate's office.
Oh.
It's through the solicitor's office. So the solicitor has to agree to divert somebody. Where that's going to come up most is for students, Clemson students. But in that case, they don't get this. PTI doesn't get to say you have to pick up trash. They say you have to do 20 hours of community service. The students are very rarely going to picking up trash. They're going to find something that's more fun to do than that. So that's not as utilized as we would hope, but we still want to keep that communication.
I think we've only had one.
Voluntary.
You know what the other choices are?
It's going to be as wide as the PTI counselors make it available for them. So they can say things like work at a homeless shelter and nothing else is springing to mind, but that sort of thing. They just have to be able to document their hours.
Really, there's no penalty.
Well,
Really, I mean, if you're just going to do that, there's really no penalty.
well, but if it's diverted, they're making that decision up front.
Yeah.
Let them do some community service, let them do some counseling. PTI is going to cover. This is not talking about litter cases. This is talking about public drunk cases, things like that that might happen around one university or two.
But I'm just saying, if you get to pick,
Yeah.
you get to go hang out at the homeless shelter. Really not getting penalized for your crime.
Yeah. Well,
I know that's not.
I can't weigh in on that.
Yeah, I know. Put you between a rock and a hard place there.
That's right. That's right. It's different than a sentence. You're exactly right. It's nobody's sentencing.
What about the judges? How often do they?
More often than not, they will send community service.
And then our two guys take them out?
Yes. We're not required to observe, but we do.
That's odd to me too, that we're not required to observe them.
It's all up to the judge's order.
Obviously, we maintain a good partnership with the waste department. We can't do anything if there's nowhere for the trash to go once it gets picked up and handled. So we worked with them to install the new signage at the recycle centers back like 3 years ago now, and updated all of that. And as new stuff gets added, we're replacing some now. So they are a good partner to us. We will admit that sometimes it is our own trucks that litter the roads. You know, I think we have our environmental enforcement officers have accounted for that. And so when we do see that, we reach out and say, hey, can you make sure you patch that hole? You know, I think we got a rusted out spot, stuff's flying out between the tarps. So they've been a lot better over the last 2 years, really inspecting before those trucks are leaving to make sure that that is not a continued issue. On our website, we do also have a resource library. This has information about Adopt a Highway, information about Pickens Crowd. We have a safety video if you're going to go out and pick up trash yourself to watch so you know the right way to do it. We have tips for doing a litter cleanup. If it is something that we are sponsoring, we have liability waivers for participants to use, or if they want to develop something on their own, that's a good example for them.
Do you have a list of roads that are like high litter roads that people can see that if you do have a group that wants to volunteer, they pick one of those roads?
We don't have them ranked by worst roads. What we did start doing with our Keep Pickens County Beautiful affiliate a couple of years ago was a litter index. And basically we pick 5 roads and we ride those every year to see how they've improved or declined. But we don't have a list of like most littered, or obviously our state highways. I mean, there's just more traffic means more trash.
Right.
But beyond that, we don't have the. We also have information about tarping resource library. I mentioned the marketing campaign. We ran one back in 2023 that was successful, and then are working with our communications and engagement department. Again, they already had some good ideas for us. They have a mascot related to the sky mascot that we can use to put out some promotional material. So we're developing that with them. I can share more information with y'all when we have actually show. But that will be like springtime, hopefully around the same time that South Carolina runs their litter free. They do a zero tolerance for litter month, typically the month of April, to align with Earth Day. So we hope to put all that information out alongside that. And then one of the key parts of all of this are the beautiful people that live here. It takes absolutely all of us to do this. What's wrong with my
It looks
graphic?
decapitated. It looks like they decapitated
Look at your barbells.
Well, we won't use that in the marketing campaign. So,
It looked like the Jeep looked good.
a little bit. Yeah, so that is a key part of that is, you know, to become zero litter for Pickens County, it takes all of us, and it takes a behavior change and a mindset change, and not just government, but civic groups, citizens. We have to want it to be clean here, right? We have 2 environmental enforcement, 2 litter officers for the entirety of the county. So, I mean, it's not like we can follow people around all day and talk to every single person. So it does take all of us. One thing I will point out is the Public Employee Service Corps that the county started in connection with United Way. I want to say in 2022, 21, somewhere post-COVID, early years. And that is an opportunity for employees to sign up to participate in some of these cleanups. You know, a lot of times code enforcement or litter enforcement will be on a property where it's just clear that the property owner is not capable of handling the issue themselves, right? And we can't take county equipment on private property, but we go on our own time and help clean up some of those. We've participated in a couple of those throughout the years, and I think that's really important. Just to be able to recognize a need, connect them with United Way for additional help, but be able to help manage the problem at the same time. Got ahead of myself, there we go. And then our Keep Pickens County Beautiful affiliate, as y'all know, because you're looking at boards and commissions now, we've not been able to maintain a solid roster of individuals on that committee probably since 2020. Honestly, we saw a big drop during COVID, and then it really has not gained momentum back. The hope would be that we had a group of people that are go-getters on their own, that are scheduling cleanups, that are working with other affiliates around the state, because we don't have a dedicated staff member to manage it. You know, if we could have a group of individuals that are really interested, really passionate about helping us clean it up, they can do a lot of this stuff on their own, and we just help get the word out, get the supplies out. Those are the kind of individuals we're looking for, if y'all are able to find those.
But when I was on this, there was a staff person. I don't know what her title
It was her, so what Mr. Roper started was having liaisons for every county committee or board and commission, and so Brooke was the staff liaison, but she did that in addition to her role as a park ranger. So it was part of her job, but not.
But it added legitimacy when you had staff person running the meeting.
Yes. And she was fantastic at it. But that is basically what we've got.
Okay, the DOT, what they do is they put out, they'll say this road is out. Have a website, and different private organizations will bid, clean up that road for X. Now, have you ever talked to the DOT about that? What they do? I think the guy's name is Ed Hunt.
Ed Hunt, I've reached out to him twice now and have not gotten information back, so I'm going to reach out to a different contact at DOT. I know it's not even the same department, but I'm hoping you can put me in contact with the right person. And I asked for a copy of the what they put out, if they're willing to share it, and then how they go about funding that as well. Like, where do those funds come from? Basically ask for any information about
If we
the
can
process.
maybe piggyback off that system.
And you'd also said they do that prior. That's right.
They do. When they first launched that program, they went ahead of the schedule, which is extremely important.
And they have a website that you can report litter on. Because I did it once for 123 and they showed up. I think it's yeah, they have just a reporting like this road is completely through us. So kind of like fixing part of it.
Yeah, that's what we have that ability now. It's just
Oh,
not well visible.
I thought that was for like turning people in. I saw this truck.
No, you can comment all kinds
So
of
you just say
different
this road.
What is the URL?
Or there's a couch
What is the address?
Have to go through the website to find it. That's how it's different than fixing county roads.
Okay.
That QR code will take you there. Yes.
All right, so the next question, you talked about the highway. That's a state program. Okay, so the state will coordinate that, and they just give you the truck.
We coordinate getting the supplies to
Okay.
the volunteer groups, and then
And how active is that program?
I want to say there's over 100 groups,
Wow, that's impressive.
but they are only required to pick up 4 times a year. So.
And it's only state roads.
So,
In the state road zone.
and some groups are take it much more seriously.
Yeah, okay. But how closely are the litter control officers working the attendance at the recycle center? Not just little, all different.
Well, for the last several months, we've been there often, doing the surveys for the post-recycle center projects. You know, I would like to say they work closely. I haven't
Okay.
viewed them myself, so.
I can give a little color because this is beyond her scope, her span of control. It's in a different division. I know that whenever I talk to the attendants, whenever Mr. Robinson witnessed him talking to the attendants, they have issues that come up where citizens will get ugly with them. Citizens will just say, you can't stop me from dumping this, or, you know, they'll say, look, it says H&H Contracting on the side. That's the name I just made up.
Sure.
Okay. It says that on the side. Yeah, that may exist. Need to do a disclaimer there. But it'll say that on the side of the truck, and they pull up and they start throwing stuff at ground. And the attendant will say, you can't do that. It's not meant for commercial. Well, the person will say, what are you going to do? And so the attendants feel like they're in no man's land. They don't need to be in it. What I tell them, what Rodney tells them, what Steve tells them is, you tell the citizen the rule, take a picture of their tag if you can, pass it on to our litter enforcement guys, and we'll follow up, knock on the door, H&H, which doesn't really exist, and tell them, you know, Acme, that's good, that probably. And talk to them about that, and counsel them on that, they can be charged with dumping, et cetera. So there is that. The attendants would like to see more of that. They tell me that all the time. I think they tell Rodney that. The litter enforcement officers have other things to do as well. So there's a tension there sometimes.
So this is the bigger question. We get this question all the time. Prison labor.
Yeah.
How much prison labor does the sheriff's department give us? How often do they give it to us? How do we use it?
So they give us, and I think we were speaking here just moments ago with Captain Durham and the Sheriff Blankenship. We have multiple inmates helping us every day. In our shelter, there's 2 that work there. At solid waste, I know that we have inmates that are working in the landfill. We don't have them out in the recycling centers like we might have had in years gone by. And then I think they also help with Public Service Commission and sewer plant from time to time. We don't use them in litter abatement like we did in years past. Don't request them. And I don't know, I think Captain Durham was telling me if that we would give it advance notice and ask, occasionally they could probably accommodate. But they don't have the capacity to have a whole bunch of those. One important point that I have to say, because I know that this is, you know, the public will view this, I know you know this, Mr. Chairman, Council, but a huge majority of the number of the folks in the jail, a huge majority, 90%, I think is probably safe to say, are not eligible to do this type of work because they have not been convicted. They're in there as pre-sentence inmates. We are not allowed to work them until they're convicted of something and sentenced to something. The folks that are eligible for us are SCDC trustees, basically, that have chosen to come to Pickens County's detention facility. And not how it used to be years ago when the stockade, we had folks at the stockade which were municipal sentences and a large degree family court, child support bench warrants. Those folks were your inmate crews because we had those. The side effect, years gone by, closing down that stockade and having the sheriff take over all of the detention for us is that we don't have our own supply of sentenced inmates. Our facility is just not designed now for sentenced inmates, other than, I think, how many can you all have? Maybe 32?
25 is what we try to hold. Get more than that, overcrowded, but got to be 25. You said in the kitchen, out at road and bridges, landfill, dog pound, LEC, grounds at the detention centers. We don't have the capacity to keep there for 2, 3, 4 days a month. Now we can, if you're asking in advance, we can line it up to where, whether it be a weekend, a Friday, or something like that. If we know ahead of time, we can have somebody go with help, but that'll take away from their current job that they're already doing.
Yeah, because when I went out, I've gone out with the litter control officers twice. And I've asked them, I said, because occasionally they'll get some people from the prison and they'll take them. And I said, what is it you would need as far as prison labor to make a dent in the litter problem? They said 2 inmates 1 day a week. That's what they told me. So if that's something you could do, that would be great, to work with them. 2 inmates 1 day a week. I'm not saying they're out there all 8 hours. Because they would have to be supervised by one of our guys. I mean, they don't want to spend time doing that. They think they can just clean up, just county roads. We're not
It
going
would
to
be,
state
it
roads.
would be
We're going to,
finite little circumstances. I don't. You said what would make it dent?
that's what I asked him. That's what he told me.
I don't think, I mean, I think anything helps. I don't want to say different than that. But I think Ms. Fowler's previous thing about we've got to have community-wide buy-in. My own philosophy about this, and this is just my own point of view, which differs from yours, Mr. Chairman, is the more inmates you see out there picking up trash, it makes people feel good. It does. To feel good. It also tells them, okay, trash goes on the side of the road. Give the inmates something to do. So I worry about that dual message. I don't think you can say that that will solve our problem. But if we have finite little, if the little guys think they have finite problems they can pick up, that they can have to schedule with the sheriff's office.
1 day a week. They told me. So if you can do that, that would be great. Any other comments?
I was able to run a Clemson version of, or a site with the Lake Hartwell Partners for Clean Water. They had not been contacting Pickens County when they were sending. And so I saw their stuff online and we have Lake Hartwell, we should be on your sites. And we ended up at, the first time we did it was in Clemson at Abernathy. And it was great because we had a huge turnout of mostly middle school beta kids. What I needed hours. What I learned is if you do an event in spring, all the kids who haven't gotten their minimum hours to graduate suddenly have to do community service. We had a fantastic turnout, and what was also cool is that the city of Clemson solid waste guys waited for us. We had an exact number that everyone could celebrate. They do this. Lake Hartwell Partners for Clean Water does this twice a year, and they have a floating barge as well that brings stuff up on the water. And they encourage people to take kayaks out. There's also a Lake Kiwi source water protection team. I love it. Coming together. And they do litter cleanups because of. So when you talk about, you had an incredible list of partners. I feel like there are also other partners. There's at least 2, and then Lake Kiwi is also the folks group. Yeah, friends of Lake Kiwi group. So there are groups doing this. And some of them are doing a lot better marketing than us, I think, because they're reaching the people, reaching the beta club of RC. Because there's people like me or like people in the community who are saying, oh, you have a big event, I will do the local chapter of your big event. And you raise a point here, you said we don't have a staff, which is fine. But what I would love to see is Pickens County viewing these groups as our partners as well. So one, they know to contact us, but then we can piggyback on their communication and be like, hey, Lake Hartwell Partner for Clean Water needs 3 sites in Lake Hartwell. Who's willing? We find a citizen to run a site. It was so easy for me to run a site. A lady met me, gave me signage, sign-up sheets with the, I won't sue anybody forms, all the gear, all the pickup stuff, and then they came and met me and cleaned it all up, and then shared with me the celebration stuff. It was all run by somebody else. So I would love to see, especially with our 2 lakes, have these groups. And then Daniel High School has an environmental club. I bet the other high schools have environmental. Reaching out to, basically the county can't do this, but there's so many right under it who are getting citizens. And we know that if you get kids paying attention to litter, they're less likely to litter. I mean, my kids have gone out and spent hot, sticky days picking up litter, and they end up hating everybody at the end of it. Why are these people so irresponsible? But that you're passing on a lesson. Ways that we can engage groups that are already doing the work. I think to your point, you said citizens, finding these groups that are able to reach the people, the citizens, volunteers is great. We may not get someone saying, I'm going to serve on a committee, but they might say, once a year, I could run a Lake Hartwell site or Lake Hartwell Partners for Clean Waters for phosphate truck. So instead of reinventing the wheel, it's helping us to better broadcast some of these events that are already happening. And highlight individuals who are willing to run a small event. And having to do that.
Our stormwater those are the late groups.
Oh, great.
So I'll go ahead and tap into.
That's kind of what me and you were talking about, getting it out there.
Hudson Extension does some stuff too, and the Hudson External Forest. I mean, there are all these groups that have these cleanup days, which is great, but it'd be also great if we could get them all working more regular basis.
I think everybody's working toward the same thing. That's more water. I'm thinking more roadway, all combines together.
We tied for any location, Clemson tied for any location having less trash, and it was not actually water. We had nobody on a boat. It was all just that park, right, shoreline.
Yeah, a lot of times.
Because that part of the shoreline is behind 123.
Yeah.
So it was all.
You could see
Kind of
that.
along that line, do we ever have any issues along 12 Mile River? Not. You ever had any, see anything like around Katinchi?
Yeah.
I see campsite.
Yeah.
People see.
Sure. I mean, at our parks, yeah, we do see that. Most of 12 Mile is private property, except for a couple of little spots where you can get in. And so we don't really access that to look, but it definitely builds up significantly under Mad Bridge. So it collects under the bridges.
You think it's kind of from upstream, or is it?
I think it's people use.
I think it's both. Yeah.
Well, you said we used to give money to the nonprofit adopted road. Got some kind of award for all the school clubs. School club that does pick up. It's an award. Just trying to engage groups that are already doing similar work.
Did you ever determine the Oklahoma County still doing
They are not.
not? And the interesting
The
thing.
wording
about
of
our
it.
research, every county that's a program says they have a program, but we're all in the same boat.
Didn't have a lot, even when we had that that was ARPA funded, we didn't have a lot of uptake on that.
That's what I said. Look at in my research, it's like every county has it, but nobody's active. Anderson County was the only county I saw that says we use inmates.
They just did a big update today.
Any other questions or comments on that comprehensive litter strategy?
It's just some good information to follow up.
This is gonna take a while. I think that's free. But you?
Should have it all cleaned up.
We have it all.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll have it cleaned up by the summer.
Start spring. The next item up is executive session, and I am going to make a motion. Go into executive session for board and commission appointments. Will I hear a second on that?
Second.
Will I hear any discussion of going executive session on board and commission appointments? Those in favor, raise your right